Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Barbara and this is bookworm.wander, and I'm so happy that you are here today because today I'll be talking about the books that I read in January. So, in January I read 5 books. 4 of them physical, 1 of them on my Kindle. So I have all the books here. 3 big fantasy books, which I usually don't read that much fantasy or not adult fantasy, but this month I read 3 big adult fantasy books. So let's just dive right into it. So the first book I read or finished in January was The Shadow of the Gods by John Green. This is the first book in Bloodborne saga. The second book is The Hunger of the Gods, and it's coming out in April. So it was just about time to read this one. I love the cover, even though on this one you can't really see. There is a little teeny tiny soldier here, but it's behind the sticker of the library. I really love the cover, and there is a huge dragon on it, so I was sold right away. So I bought this on my Kindle, and then I borrowed it from library to have like a physical copy. Anyway, this is an adult fantasy book based on Norse mythology, and we have 3 main points of view, or 3 main characters that we follow. Each of them are in different part of the world, and I don't think I can make it the justice just describing what the book is about, so I'm going to read the blurb for you and then I will tell you what I thought about it. So, a century has passed since the gods fought and drove themselves to extinction. Now only their bones remain, promising great power to those brave enough to seek them out. As whispers of war echo across the land of Vigrid, fate follows in the footsteps of 3 warriors, a huntress on a dangerous quest, a noblewoman pursuing battle fame, and a thrall seeking vengeance among the mercenaries known as the Bloodsworn. All 3 will shape the fate of the world as it once more falls under the shadow of the gods. So there are the 3 main characters that we follow. 2 of them are women, 1 of them is a man. And all of them come from different backgrounds. They are in different life situation, all of them, so it's really these different characters that come together. My problem with the book, my biggest problem with the book was that we didn't really get to know the characters. So I was reading it, and for I don't know how long it is. It's almost 500 pages, and it took me about 250 pages to get some characters introduced and for me to start caring about any of them, because it was just, we didn't get any background into the characters. What the book was though, it was very plot driven, which I usually prefer character driven books, but this one was plot driven, and at the end of the book it worked. The plot is very, very strong, and even though I didn't really care about the characters all that much, I was still interested in what's gonna happen. How will these 3 characters come together? How does this influence each other? And I was interested, so I just kept reading. There is a lot of battles, a lot of action. It all makes sense. I really enjoyed the plot, and especially the ending was very strong. If it wasn't for the great ending, the last chapter, I'm not sure I would be eager to pick up book number 2, but the last chapter assured me that this book is really just a great setup for book number 2. So this is basically, we just get introduced to the characters, we get introduced to the world. There is some plot to lead it around and to get us into the world to understand what's happening. But no huge things happen. One huge thing in the end, obviously. But other than that, nothing huge happens, and it's really just getting to know the world and setup. And I'm really excited to read book number 2 to see where it goes and to hopefully get to know the characters more, because there are some great reveals in the end, and I'm just very excited. So this was a great book, and it was 4 stars, but I would say on the low side of the 4 stars. So it was between 3 and 4 stars, but I really liked it, so this was great. Next book I read is a book, also high fantasy adult book, that my friend Diana begged me to read for, ever since I know her. So I finally read it, because she was doing buddy reads with some of her friends. So I jumped in and I read it, and I'm glad that I did, because it was great. And it is The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. which is the first book in the King Killer Chronicle series, and it is a huge book. It's 660 pages, and also the text is so small in this book. It's crazy. It took me so long. But Buddy read it, so it was a lot of fun to discuss this with everyone else. Nevertheless, this is basically story of Quoth, who is now an innkeeper in Waystone Inn, and tells his story to this chronicle that comes into the inn, and tells his story about how he grew up, what he did as a child, how he got into the university, and all the good pieces. The writing is beautiful. Like, I absolutely adored the writing style because it gives us such a deep background and understanding of Quoth and of his character that you just care about him, even though he is arrogant and sometimes he is way too smart and things just come too easy to him, but somehow it works, and somehow I didn't care about these things. So it was really, really good. The world building was amazing because I could easily imagine what was happening and how the world looks. I just saw it in my head. It was great. I had some issues with some later things because he struggles with the money especially in the second half of the book, and I just didn't really appreciate this. On one page he had lots of money and he could afford this, and that, and then in the next chapter suddenly he doesn't have enough money, and it just like all evaporated. So we were even joking in the buddy read that somebody needs to teach this boy some money saving strategies. So that was one thing that bothered me a little bit, but not a big deal. And then there was one plot line that I didn't really buy. I felt like it was unnecessary and a little far-fetched. Like, I just didn't feel it, even though all the other people in the buddy read were like, yeah, it makes sense, great, and I was like, it doesn't. But all in all, it was fine anyway. One thing I missed a little bit is I wanted to get to know more the other characters. So we know Quoth a lot, like there is a lot of details about him, but I wished we would get to know his friends a little bit more. They are around, but I wished we would have a little bit more of them. And that was the only thing, really. Other than that, I loved it, and these are such minor things. This is like very, very strong 4 stars for me, and I already started reading the second book, so brilliant, loved it. Next book I read was a book I wanted to read for a long time, and I actually wanted to buy it when I saw it on sale, but decided I'll just borrow it from library when I get a chance. And then I was in the library, I saw it there, so I grabbed it because, well, I wanted to buy it. Now it is here, now it's available, I'm gonna take it. And I am glad that I just got it from the library because I just don't want to own this book. I didn't like this book. It was longlisted for Women's Prize for Fiction in 2021. And I read 2 books that were nominated for that prize in general, and I didn't like either of them, so I'm not sure I will keep reading those books. Anyway, the book is Detransition Baby by Victoria Peters. As you can guess, the book is about transgender characters. So we have 3 main characters. One of them is Reese, then we have Ames, and we have Katrina. Reese is a trans woman. Ames is a man who used to be a trans woman. So that's a whole story there. And then we have Katrina, who now is with Ames, is his girlfriend, and she got pregnant. And she is his boss. So it's a mess. And while this all sounded really interesting, I just like the idea of it, that I'm going to read about trans characters and pregnancy involved and all these things. Like, I want to learn about them. So I wanted to read about it from an author who herself is a trans woman. Let's start with Ames. Ames is a man who used to be a trans woman, and as a trans woman, Amy dated Reese. So they lived together, they were together for a couple of years, and as Ames, he's a man, but he still has the mind of a woman. He is not sure of who he is, really. But he has this girlfriend, Katrina, his boss, who ends up pregnant, and she doesn't know if she wants to keep the baby, and asks Ames for what he thinks. Can we do this? Ames says, and this is all in the blurb, Ames says that, well, I'm not sure, I don't think I can be a father. That's not me. But let me ask my girlfriend Reese if she wants to raise the baby with us. Does it make sense? I read the book and it doesn't. Anyway, Katrina first freaks out when she finds out, because she didn't know that Ames was trans woman. So now she's like, oh, like, do I even know this guy? Do I want to do this? Like, what's going on? Then she talks to her mother, and miraculously, suddenly she's like, yes, I want to meet your ex-girlfriend. Let's talk about it. So the book basically dives deep. It is very, very character-driven book. It dives deep into each of these characters, or mostly Reese and Ames. Katrina is kind of in the background, even though she is basically the pinpoint of the book, because she is pregnant, and it depends on her if she wants to keep the baby or not, and if she wants to do this with them or not. Anyway, the main people are Ames and Reese, and we keep going between current timeline and past timeline, like when Reese met Amy, and when Reese was dating Amy, and after she was, yeah, it's a whole story about how they got to this point, which all was quite interesting, except I couldn't stand Reese. Reese is a horrible human being, and I was so angry. Around 100 pages in, I wanted to just throw the book away because that was so bad. Not only did Reese think these things, awful things, it felt like the author thinks those things. It didn't feel like it's coming directly from the character. It was as if the author was speaking down to me as a cis woman, as because I'm a cis woman, I'm automatically against trans women and threats to them, and it just was not what I wanted from a book like this. It's not what I wanted to learn about trans people. But let me just give you an example of Reese. It is even in the blurb that she is basically has a self-destructive pattern and sleeps with married men. And then one of the men end up beating her, or slaps her. And then she says, yeah, I wanted to be slapped, because finally that confirmed my womanhood. Because every woman wants to be slapped, so because that's the definition of being a woman, because she gets slapped by a man. And this is a quote, because every woman loves a fascist. Like, no, no, this is wrong. And then there are other things that were completely horrible. How she thought she's very judgmental, very arrogant. Only she is right, and she's feeling so sorry for herself. Instead of trying to change things and help people, she's just complaining about how awful everything is. I didn't like this book at all, and I really, really hope that this doesn't represent the entire transgender community, because I'm sure it doesn't. Because Amy seemed nice, but Reese, I couldn't stand. So this I didn't like. I gave it 2 stars because I still learned something, I still got something out of it. I want to support transgender literature, but I still didn't like it, so 2 stars. Disappointed in this one. Okay, we have 2 books left. Let's start with The Black Flamingo. The Black Flamingo by Dean Etta. It is a coming-of-age story of a boy called Michael, who is mixed race, so his mom is white, his dad is black, and he's gay. And it is told in verse, which doesn't rhyme. Again, I have internal issues with books written in verse that doesn't rhyme. Like, what is even the point? But I probably don't understand. That's okay. I'm just an amateur reader, amateur reviewer. Let's move on. We meet Michael when he turns 6, and he asks for Barbie, and he doesn't get the Barbie because his mom thought that he was just joking. And he was like, no, I wasn't joking, I want the Barbie. So he gets a Barbie next birthday. And it basically follows his story growing up and being gay and being mixed race and having a supportive mother. Like, she was always so nice to him. She always was very understanding and supportive, and it was really beautiful story. Then he goes through high school, he got himself a friend, Daisy, and they are like best friends, and then he has a crush on these boys in school, and it goes on and on and on, and then he goes to university where he finally finds himself, and it's very quick read, but very powerful. Like, these kind of books are usually focused on the trauma of being gay and of being black, and how they are bullied and looked down upon, and it's just usually it's a lot about the trauma. But this book is a lot about the joy and about the good things and about the fun, and how strong he was through it all, and how he enjoyed it anyway. And it was just such a beautiful, empowering story that I think every child should read, whether gay or not. And yeah, I just found it really pretty. I think that was a great quick read, and I would definitely recommend if you want just something quick to squeeze in. I gave these 4 stars. And the last book that I read in January was another huge adult fantasy book that you're gonna hate me for if I talk about it. It is The Poppy War. I don't have the physical copy because I have it on Kindle, but I read The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang, which is the first book in the Poppy War series. And I read this as a buddy read with Diana again, and so we read it together. And this book is basically about Rin, who is an orphan, abused by her foster parents, who want to marry her off to this guy, which would be very beneficial for them because that would help them with their opium business, illegal opium business. And she definitely doesn't want to get married. She asked her foster mother, I do not want to get married. And she's like, you will get married. And then she says, I want to go to the academy. And she's like, no, children like you, people like us don't go to academy. And she's like, but I will. And so she studies for 2 years, day and night. She doesn't sleep. She's exhausted. She studies for the exams because they are like very difficult. She takes the exams and she gets into the best academy in the country, military academy, and she studies there as an outsider. She's very clever, very smart, very good at everything she does. Even though she does struggle because she has darker skin than all the other kids. She is an outsider. She is from the Rooster province of the country, while all the other kids are children of lords or warlords and this nobility. And they all, for example, this is a military academy, so they need to know martial arts, but Rina never practiced martial arts in her life. While all these other children were practicing for years and years and years, ever since they were little. So she struggles with those things, but everything else that she can learn, she does. This book is also basically a historical fiction fantasy based on the war between China and Japan. This book is split in 3 parts. First part, she's in academy, and the other 2 parts are outside of academy. It changes scenery, changes the setting, changes the characters even. Like, the main character stays, but most of the other characters are completely different. And when we were reading this with Diana, and we were somewhere in the first part, we were like, can't believe I didn't read it sooner. This is so great. This is such a great book. And I'm just devouring it. So great. And it was. There were some things that were a little bit odd or a little bit strange, and they just didn't add up, or yeah, it just didn't feel right. But I was like, that's okay, I'm sure it will make sense later. And I loved it. And then we come to part 2, and this is where my problem starts, like, for real, because I believe that the first part should have been book on its own. We should have gotten the entire background into Rin, build of her character, and build of all the other characters, because they are there, but we don't get to know them. They're just like mentioned, they're like here and there, right? So I wish we would get one entire book, only this academy setting, and then at the end of the book, it would be this cliffhanger that was at the end of part 1. And that would be a great book, and I would be really like happy to read the second book after that. Second book would be the part 2 and part 3 of the Poppy War book, where we would have much more time to dive into what was happening. Because my biggest problem with the book was that, well, first of all, Rin is quite unlikable. Anything anybody tells her, this is dangerous, don't do it. I will help you, but you need to be careful about this. And she's like, no, I want power. And she makes a mistake of this once. And then she's like, I can't say I want power. I will only, I will pretend like I'm a good girl, but then I will use it to get power. And she's this kind of mean, arrogant, selfish character who only wants power. And it's just incredible how she is so smart, but she doesn't add up 2 and 2 in her head, that maybe you also need to be a good person, Anyway, so that's one problem. Another problem, and probably my biggest problem with the book, is that when we come to part 2 and part 3, war starts. We know it's called the Poppy War, so we know that war starts, or war happens in this book, so there is a war. And instead of showing us these battles and showing us these events that happen and how it led to it and how our characters relate to it and if they were in it, what happened, who got injured, whatever, this wasn't there. It was just like the chapter would start 2 weeks ago, this happened, and then we did this and that, and since then we were, I don't know, resting, and that was it. Like, it was explained on half a page what happened, instead of actually showing us and getting us engaged into the war and see what happens. So this happened constantly, and I just really didn't like it. I wanted to experience it first eye instead of being told that this happened. So that was my biggest problem with the book. Also, there was unnecessary gore, and there are some like questionable decisions regarding this, because while I understand that, especially the famous chapter 21 is based on real events and these things really happened, I just found it so, like, it was just sickening. It was horrible, horrifying, traumatizing. I was seriously like physically sick after reading the chapter. And I didn't know that at that time I didn't know this book was based on reality. And it just felt like there is lack of the war description, there is lack of, our engagement in the war as like reader, that now the author is giving us this horrible, gory stuff happening, so she kind of compensates for the shock value. Instead of getting actually emotionally invested in the story, she only shows us this stuff. And now don't come at me for this, because I understand that it's really based on reality, but if you want to tell me about what happened like in reality and put it into fantasy story, you need to make it somehow, the entire story feel realistic. And this book just felt like it was just way over the top in certain parts, and I just started to take everything with a pinch of salt, because it was just like, how is this possible, and how is that possible, and why would this happen, why would that happen? And just some things didn't make any sense, and I felt like they were not done well, that when this chapter happens, I was just like, yeah, she's just trying to make us disgusted and trying to make us, care for these people and hate the other people, makes the other people into monsters. And yeah, it just didn't feel right. Also, we just happened to stumble on these other characters from the first part, happened to be in the part 2 and part 3 here and there when it fits the story. It doesn't feel natural. It just is like, oh yeah, I know this girl, so she's gonna tell me this, what happened. Like, what are the odds? What are the odds? And then the ending. Obviously, I'm not gonna say what happened, but it absolutely shocked me. It was horrible. I don't know how to talk about this without spoilers, but let me just say that I'm really surprised that people are not disgusted by it. Or they are, but they're not showing it enough. I don't understand the ending at all. It was horrible. The character didn't own it. Like, some people say they wanted this character to feel really sorry for what they did. And I'm like, well, if you are so messed up that you do this, then at least stand up for it, like own it that you did it, because otherwise it's just like, I don't know what you think about this character at all. Like, do I hate them? Do I feel sorry for them? I don't know. I'm angry. I'm angry about this book. I didn't like it. I give it 2 stars because I really enjoyed the first part, even though still I thought it could have been done much better, but it was still really, really good. The rest was bad. I said it. Anyway, since I finished the book, I was watching all these reviews and rants on YouTube, people reviewing this book and talking about this book, and I start to understand a little bit more, but I still think it was done badly and I didn't like it at all how it was done. At all. And I think it just shines through how the author is inexperienced when writing this book, and I just can't get through it. It was just not good. But still, I now feel so intrigued and I'm so like invested in how much I don't like this book that I want to continue and see if I would hate the second book as much as I hate the second and third part of the first book. I don't know what to do, but the second book is like over 800 pages, so it's like, do I really want to read 800 pages to see if I also hate it? Like, I don't know what to do. I'm completely consumed and I'm crazy. Anyway, rant over. I still think people should read it and don't take my opinion for it, because obviously there are so many people who love it, like most of the people love the book, so I am probably wrong. But this is my opinion. I absolutely didn't like the book. So don't take my word for it. Read it yourself, see for yourself. You might absolutely love it because it definitely has a potential. I really like the plot overall. I just hated how it was done. Yeah, if you would like me to talk with spoilers and actually say what bothered me so much about it, maybe let me know, so maybe I can make additional video about it, because I'm really passionate and angry about the book. Anyway, let's just sum up. I read these books in January, these 4 books plus the Poppy War. I think it was a great reading month because, well, I had 2 2-star books. Both of them I feel enraged, which usually I don't feel when I read a book that is 1 or 2 stars. I'm usually like, I don't even care. It was not worth it, you know. But these 2 books, the Detransition Baby and the Poppy War, I feel so passionate about. Oh. And the rest were 4 stars. So I think it was a great reading month. Yeah, let me know if you read any of these books, what you thought, if you agree with me on what I thought about these books, on my reviews. Let's discuss them. I think this would be so much fun to discuss these books. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!